Hey, what do you know? This is the Melvin Live show, and we getting a little bit of a signal issue here on Restream, but nonetheless, if you want to make a lasting change and you want to make change successful, then definitely this video is for you. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about this whole process of making changes because I think for many of us, beginning of the year is a time where we have that intention to want to make certain changes in our life and for the better, of course. So, in this whole session itself, what I'd like to do is to share with you, the article that I've read from Harvard Working Knowledge. And the article goes a little bit deep into how can you make change successful. Now, so before we kind of get to that, I just want to say that if you're watching this for the first time, thank you for joining us, and my name is Melvin, and I host this live show every day. And the whole purpose of this show itself is to be able to share with you actionable advice that you could implement for your 1 person, 1 million old digital business. Now, so today I want to talk about, making change successful. Now, what exactly does that looks like? Now, many of us, we would like to make some changes in our life, and some of the changes that we want to do essentially is, how we are able to kind of implement certain things that we want to see in our business itself. And so, if you're like me, sometimes we tend to be a bit more ambitious than we should be. And so we kind of dive deep into all the things that we want to do right at the same time. So I myself, it's a little guilty of that because sometimes when I want to make a certain change in my life, instead of making a change in a small little ways, I usually dive into a couple of things at the same time, and noticing from the past behavior and the past pattern itself, I realize that that isn't going to work. And so, in today I actually read this article from Harvard Working Knowledge, and it talks about, if you want to make change successful, then what you want to do is you want to start with a small C. Now, what does the small C means? Now, let's break it down a little bit. All right. So, essentially, when we talk about the small C, what we are looking at is essentially we're saying that, you know, um, we don't want to go dive deep into something that is huge and it becomes overwhelming. And because if we are trying to do something new and we cannot dive deep into it, it's not going to be to our advantage itself. In fact, we are setting ourselves to lose, right? We're not setting ourselves up for successes. So, what are some of the things that you could do? And here's what I'd like to kind of share with you here. So, the first element essentially is, when you want to start with a small C, um, you really want to create an environment, an atmosphere of trust and confidence. And what it means by that is that essentially what you want to do is you really want to think about how you are able to set your routine up in such a way that it's able to facilitate this whatever change that you're making um, a possibility. So let me give you an example. One of the things that I have been really getting myself to do is to be very intentional with my videos. It's not just some random videos that I thought of, and just because I have to do a live video every day, I cannot dive into something and just get it over and done with. No, that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is I want to make each and every video an impactful one, at the same time to talk about how it has helped me in my journey, in this journey as a 1 person, 1 million or digital business. And of course, then how you can potentially, benefit from that. That's the whole idea behind it, right? And so, you know, um, so the thing that you really want to do is you want to be able to facilitate, set aside a routine or schedule it such that, if you want to make this change possible, um, this is what's going to help you. So as an example, in order to make a video that is more intentional and that there is a purpose and not just making any random videos itself, um, what I like to do is what I do is every day I would actually look through the email newsletter that I receive, and then I will pick one aspect of it that I felt that, it's something that is insightful, something that it's good to share with my audience, and that's where I use it, and I use it to kind of share. And of course, when it comes to sharing that particular insight itself, I have a particular framework in my mind that helps me kind of think through the whole process itself, right? So in order for me to be able to get that, right, in order for me to be able to get that, and that meaning, to be able to create a video that is a bit more purposeful rather than just some random video, I need to set aside time to do that. So what I do is I make sure that every day, either during my commute or during, the time that I have when I am, for example, sitting in the toilet. I mean, we all bring our phones to the toilet, don't we? Yeah. And so, when I'm there, and whenever I had some downtime, what I'll do is, I'll take out my phone and I'll go through these articles, and that's where I look out for things that I want to share, right? And so, without scheduling, without making sure that routine is being factored into, I'm going to be scrambling every single day, and that's going to create a tremendous amount of stress. Number one. Number two is that, at the end of the day, the videos are not going to be very, very effective, and then, the audience will find out, right? So that it's something that you want to do when you think about, starting with a small C. Now, the other thing that you really want to do is when you are starting with a small, when you are looking at making changes itself, you want to think of the ecosystem. And here, in a sense, when they talk about ecosystem, really it's who are the people that are going to be affected by this change. Now, sometimes, even in the best of intention, there could be people who want to, just because you're making the change itself, it may result in some other people being affected. So, for example, if you decide, for instance, to schedule a particular routine in the morning itself, then suddenly you are not going to be able to take any calls in the morning, or you're not going to be able to meet anyone in the morning. And that might create a problem for perhaps your client, or your team members, or even your spouse, for example. So as you are making this change itself, yes, you want to implement this change. And if you're anything like me, you're probably also quite um, you know, excited and, in a sense, impatient about wanting to make this change. But you also need to think about how this change is going to make an impact or affect other people. So it's not just about you, but you also want to think of it as an ecosystem. And of course, with the ecosystem itself, this is where your your possibility of you being successful in making that change is going to be possible, right? Now, the third thing that you want to look at is that you want to seek a win-win. Now, it's easy to talk about win-win itself, but let's look at what are the four possibility. Now, the four possibility essentially, it's let's go with a lose-lose, lose win, I win, you lose, or you win, I lose, and of course, then there is the win-win situation. Now, why does the win-win comes into place when you are making this change? So remember earlier on when we talk about ecosystem, when we think about who are the other people who's going to be impacted by your desire to make this change, right? How are their routine is going to be affected just because you want to make this change a permanent thing, for example, right? So this is where you want to think win-win. In other words, you're not just looking at a compromise, you're not just looking at this is the way that I'm doing it or the highway, right? You want to be able to seek a win win situation. And sometimes that win win situation involve just sharing with the people that it's going to potentially make an impact on, and share with them and help them see where you're coming from, and how by you making this change is going to make a positive impact on the relationship with them, right? And so many a times I think this comes into play, especially when it comes to looking at teammates, for example, or you are looking at working with your vendors, for instance. This is something that you really need to look at, right? So seek win-win. Now the other thing is that as you're making this change itself, inevitably what's going to happen is that you are probably not going to be successful at the first attempt, and that is absolutely fine, because barring which something that is so simple, you are not likely to make you're not likely to get it right the first time itself. I remember when I started intermittent fasting, for instance, I was all over the place, and it took me a while. In fact, I'm making the adjustment right now to kind of implement that. So it takes a period of time before things can occur. And so you do not want to kind of beat yourself up. You also want to be able to look at, what are some of the past experiences that you had, and how you are able to tap on those past experiences and think about how you deal with it. So, as an example, if you're looking, for me, when I am looking at, uh, you know, with if I want to be intentional with every video itself, then I would need to do some research upstream. And what I found that was is the following: that if the task is going to be too convoluted, I'm going to end up not doing it at all. And so, I would overthink things, and that is just horrible, right? So, what I really want to do is to make it as simple as possible, make it as frictionless as possible, and in the process itself to kind of implement that so that I will be able to get away with implementing it. So I have no excuses whatsoever not to do it, right? And finally, the last thing that I found it to be really, really useful, at least for me, it's to do it publicly, right? So I've got a small community on Twitter, and with this group of people, I kind of share with them publicly, like, what is that thing that I'm doing, and and this has a great way of holding me accountable, not just for the fact that it's going to they're going to call me out if I kind of fall out, but the thing is that I know that someone's going to ask me maybe 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months down the road, so the last time you talk about this thing that you're doing, how is it going? People are going to ask that. And so that's something that I really want to be able to kind of address that situation itself. So sharing publicly, it's really, really, something that you want to consider. And so there you have it. If you want to make your change successful, you want to make a successful change, start with a small C and think about all these five factors, right? So create an atmosphere of trust and confidence, right? Number two, to think the ecosystem, right? Who else is going to be involved? Number three, you're going to think win-win. You're going to seek a win-win situation. Number four, you're going to tap into your past experiences, and of course, number five, you want to be able to do it publicly. All right, so that's what I want to share with you here today. It's something simple, um, yet it's not easy. Yeah, usually things that are simple are not easy. So, in any case, if you have a question for me, I'll be more than glad to answer them. And in any case, I'm gonna be, as I mentioned, I'm gonna be changing up the format a little bit. Um, in the days to come itself. So watch this space. And if you haven't already, right? If you haven't already, can I ask you to head on down to melvin.tv, subscribe to this channel, and give me a thumbs up because that would really, really encourage me a great deal. So wherever you're watching this from, whether it's on LinkedIn, it's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, make sure you hit the like button. That means a great deal to me. All right. And so with that, I thank you so much for watching. And let me know if there is a topic that you would like me to cover, anything that you like me to share. Just drop in the comments, and I'll be sure to take a look at that. All right. Yeah. And so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.